Aloha everybody, sitting here with Jimmy Dillon today, and I wanted to just sit with you and chat because we have so many people on the YouTube channel that may not know your history, and I know people in Mill Valley, they obviously know who you are, people here in Maui know, but we have a worldwide audience, and I wanted to just sit down with you and kind of explore some of your history and let people out there who are new subscribers, thank you for subscribing.
Thank you.
If you haven't subscribed already, please do down below. And just kind of give them an inside sneak peek in your life, your history, because it's amazing. Like what you've done, it's like I'm constantly starstruck by the stories that Jimmy has, whether it's from B.B. King or Eric Clapton and Santana, even Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
You've been around the block. And
I have.
For a guy like me who idolized the 70s and 60s rock and roll. It's like, oh my gosh, I would have killed to live back then.
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't you take us back to when you very first started, when you knew you wanted to play guitar?
Well, it's funny because I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and I grew up in the golden age of rock and roll, like you were saying. I mean, Elvis and all the great soul music of the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. My first influence, believe it or not, was a guy named Goldie that worked at a gas station in LA and at the Shell station down the street. And he was this really cool black dude with pointed alligator shoes on.
Nice.
And I was like a 10-year-old kid. I'd go down and hang out at a gas station. And he had an acoustic guitar, of all things. And it was an old Gibson, I think, and he'd roll out these fabulous soul songs, Ray Charles, and even some rock and roll. So as I look back, the seed was planted there when I was very, very young, like 9, 10 years old. But my actual first hands on the guitar moment was when we moved to Michigan. My family moved to Michigan when I was about 12. And I went out and I told my mom I wanted to play guitar, I wanted to rock and roll. I was inspired watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, that was a big moment for a lot of us. So my mom said, okay, but you got to go out and work. So I mowed lawns all summer. And that was really not my MO at the time. I was like, go to the beach kid, but not a mow lawns kid. Work! But I wanted that guitar so bad. I could see that guitar after every lawn I mowed. I would say, I'm a little bit closer to my guitar. So sure enough, my mom was good to her word. And when the time came at the end of the summer, I had raised like $125, which at that time was a fair amount of money. We went to Jack's Pawn Shop in South Bend, Indiana, which in those days you could get vintage guitars for really reasonable at these old pawn shops. There's a few left. And I said, I want that red electric guitar right up there on the wall, hanging there. And it turns out it was a 1961 Les Paul, red Les Paul SG. So that was my first guitar. And actually, I've never turned back a day since then. I've been in love with guitar all this time. And I just started playing in bands in high school, and it took it from there, yeah.
It's interesting. You talk about Goldie and his shoes.
Oh, Goldie, yeah.
I always say you can tell a lot about somebody by the kind of shoes that they wear.
That's true. That's true.
You can tell a lot about us because we don't wear
barefoot
shoes.
Today. It must be in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, gosh, I think I wear shoes like twice a year.
Yeah.
So So you got the guitar. What was the learning process? Was it easy? Was it hard for you? Did you join a band right away?
Yeah, both. It was hard. I don't consider myself. I was not a prodigy at all. I had to kind of work at it. It didn't come that easy. But I got so bit by the rock and roll bug at the time, and because I had a decent guitar and I had a little K amp, which is not a Fender amp. Because I had a decent guitar, I immediately got in a band. So I got with a bunch of buddies and. One of the guys who was in the band was about a year ahead, and at that time, that's a lot to be ahead when you're a teenager. He was really good, and I would recommend this for any guitar players out there or any musicians in general. Get with somebody who's better than you and learn from them. So we had a little band, we called it the Fugitives. That was the name of my first band. Our first gig was on the back porch of a beach house on Lake Michigan, playing for some of my mom's friends. And we just loved it, man. We got together after school every day, and we'd listen to Beatle tunes. And I mean, I was listening to Jimi Hendrix when I was 14, trying to decipher that stuff. You can imagine Cream, listen to first Cream album, right? And Sunshine of So, kind of a high bar to be starting at, right?
Yeah. I was still struggling with Smoke on the Water.
Exactly, yeah. But we remember these things because these iconic licks, that really were changing the world at the time. So I feel kind of lucky that I grew up in that time in the early '70s in a great period of original rock and roll. This is the first time it happened, you know. I saw Hendrix when I think I was 15 or 16.
Wow.
And he just blew my mind completely. So, yeah, so that was playing in bands in high school was a fun thing. It was mostly covers, but I started writing right away. I was doing original songs right away. And then what the game changer for me was when I was 17, I moved back to Sausalito, California. My family was from California, and my dad worked in Chicago. Once I got to the Bay Area, to San Francisco, this was in 1969, so the Summer of Love had just happened. So we were still kind of in the blush of the Summer of Love. You know, you could still feel the magic across the Golden Gate Bridge. And for me, as a young guy, I could just sit around and play guitar, I worked a little bit, some odd jobs. Mostly I just sat and played my guitar 8-10 hours a day. Jeez. And that's what took me there, you know. And of course I was grateful to be in the Bay Area. This guy Carlos Santana, the Santana Blues Band had just started. The Fillmore was happening. So I was hitchhiking across the bridge, going to the Fillmore, going to the Keystone Corner here, Mike Bloomfield, who was an idol of mine. So you're talking about, you know, our heroes and people that we get to play with along the way. As it turns out, you know, many, many decades later, I got to play with some of my heroes, and that's a different part of the story, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, man, San Francisco at that time, I mean, I cannot
It was cool.
think of a more epic scene.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't want to go back to LA because LA was a different thing. It was a little darker, it was the Doors. I mean, not that they didn't have the Birds and some cool stuff. But San Francisco seemed a little more funky and friendly and kind of with it to me.
Was it a little, 69, so I obviously wasn't even alive then, but was that slightly like after the flower power and kind of like the drugs had kind of kicked in and it was a little dirtier?
The Haight-Ashbury had already turned the corner and gotten darker. But a lot of the great musicians, whether it was Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, the Airplane, which later became the Jefferson Starship, Mike Bloomfield, as I mentioned already, Santana, they all moved across the Golden Gate Bridge to Marin County. Oh, you know, it's a really beautiful place, a lot of nature. Van Morrison moved there in '71.
Oh, wow.
So I lived in Sausalito, which is the gateway to Marin County. It's the first town you hit going across the Golden Gate Bridge. And living in Sausalito was like a little Italian village at that point. You know, it wasn't quite so touristy. And so, yeah, even though the city, the Haight-Ashbury had gone, you know, had gotten into the drug thing and gotten dark, Marin County was really a great place to be, and everybody was hanging out and playing, and yeah, it's cool.
Nice. So you're pretty well known in Marin, particularly in
Mill Valley?
Mill Valley,
Sure.
where the Sweetwater is, Classic Club and whatnot. You also, you did a Blue Stars music camp. Did that start in Mill Valley, or was that also in Michigan?
Actually, that started in Michigan. That's funny that we jump. The story jumps around a little bit from California to Michigan because my mom's from there, and my mom and dad were living back in Michigan, even during the time I came out to California. So the way that worked out, I mean, I have to go back a little bit. I was working with Clarence Clemens from the Bruce Springsteen band, the big man on sax. He was kind of one of my first entrees into the big stage because I toured the world with him. I was with him on and off for a couple of decades. So when I was with Clarence, that's how I got a chance to play with some of my other heroes, Bob Dylan, Springsteen, people like that. Reason being, Clarence was really well loved, and he was such a great player and a great personality, bigger than life. So Blue Star Music Camp, the reason I started that, and I digress a little bit here, after working with Clarence, I wanted to do my first solo album, which is called Bad and Blue. And that was back in the early 90s. And my dream was to go to Europe and be like the American roots musician, you know, living in Paris. I mean, I know, you know, it's a dream for a lot of us. And so what I did was, how am I going to do that? So I'd already recorded my first album with the Robert Cray Band as my backing band, great musicians. And my buddy Ozzy Allers, who's my partner, co-writing the songs. So I sent my material over to the Montreux Jazz Festival, which to me was the pinnacle of all festivals. It's one of the first ones, if not the first. Newport was great. So I sent it to a guy that was part of the Montreux Jazz Festival, and I got accepted to come over there and play. But just me, you know, so I brought my guitars over to Europe. I went into Montreux, and I hung out for about 2 weeks, and I played this place called Harry's Bar, which ironically, was the basement of the Palace Hotel, right there where all the acts come after they play. Smoke on the Water was written in Montreux when there's a big fire there. So by playing there all for that 2-week period, everybody had their cards, and people that were bookers and promoters from around Europe, they got my material, and I was starting to get phone calls and said, well, why don't you come and play this festival or come and play this club? So what started out as 2 weeks turned into 3 months. I ended up staying the whole summer by myself and picking up band members from different places, from Vienna and some different players. And I ended up getting a foothold in Europe in that little period of time, and I got a record deal in Germany. So that was the beginning of my solo career. And but what I'm getting to is that while I was in Europe, I started doing little teaching things with kids around Europe. Wherever I do a tour date, I would do a little workshop, and I would bring in people of all age, but a lot of youngsters came. So that inspired me. When I came back to America after spending time in Europe, I thought, well, what do I want to do now? And I thought, well, keep in mind, this is 6 years before School of Rock, okay? So we were like, Blue Star Music Program, music camp as it were, was the first truly contemporary rock and roll camp in America. And we started that in Michigan. And the reason we did it in Michigan, I was back there visiting my mom and dad and my sister, and we found an old factory. And I said, hey, let's gut the factory and create a music place for kids to learn. And that's where I met Tom Fouts, and it became, so we started a nonprofit, and I got a grant immediately, luck of the draw, right? I got a $30,000 grant, we rehabbed this old building, and we were off and running.
Nice.
Blue Star, yeah.
So with Blue Star, kids would just come in, and what exactly? How did it work?
The way it worked was, my goal was to set up something, because I knew there was classical music camps, whether it's Stanford or Interlochen or whatever. There's a few jazz camps around, but there was no B.B. King 101. Where do you learn to play rock and roll from people that are lifetime musicians, that are seasoned musicians that have toured, recorded, know the ups and downs and the ins and outs of business, and are great players and can teach. So I wanted to create a safe place for kids to come and explore contemporary music, rock and roll, reggae, jazz, country, funk, blues, whatever. Everything that you can't get other places. That was my goal. And so we did that with Blue Star, and the internet had just come to be. And so people were able to come in and look from all countries all around the world and see that there was a place where kids could come and spend a whole week and get an intensive and learn from people like myself.
But it wasn't just you. You brought in some studs.
Yeah, we had Earl Klug there, who's a great jazz player. Clarence taught there. Narda Michael Walden, drummer for Jeff Beck, people like that. But mostly I got people that I know that are in the business that have toured, and not all people can teach. There's an old saying, those that can't do, teach. But the truth of the matter is some people that can do can also teach, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So I was kind of the Pied Piper. I was the guy that sort of brought everybody together and kind of made magic in the room. And honestly, it was so new and so fresh that we learned something every day that we did it. It was great.
I'm so glad you did it, because it really shows in your ability to teach now with your lessons, being able to teach kids, which can't always be easy to do.
Well, it's not, and kids, kids aren't impressed with who you've played with and where you've been. They really don't care. They just want to know what you can show them right now.
Yeah.
Get them to where they want to go. So it was really kind of humbling in a way to just sit with kids and see myself at 15 or 16 or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, what did I want? I wanted to learn great songs that I love. So we really use songs as kind of our platform to get kids to the next level and to teach them. But it was like guerrilla teaching. The stage was our classroom, okay? So we'd take kids up on the stage, we'd set up a band and leave it up for the whole summer. And the kids would just get up there and they loved it. Because when you walk on stage, your antennas are up, the lights go on. So we would have them write their own show. We'd say, okay, you pick out the songs, you send us some songs when you audition for us. And the audition process was really important with Blue Star because, first of all, you had to have a basic level of proficiency. You couldn't be a non-player. It wouldn't be fair to the kids that have studied so hard. So what we would do is, before the camp would actually happen, we'd look at all our different students and we'd try to create, to the best of our ability, each week, something that locked in, like a bass player, a drummer, a couple guitars, not too many guitars.
Yeah.
A singer, a couple gals that sing. Most of the gals would sing more than the guys, I found out. So I would encourage them to bring in their own ideas on how to do a set. And we'd work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we do a dry run, Friday show. Lights would come up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. So
Yeah.
how did you make the transition from teaching in that realm? And when you were like early on playing guitar, did you ever envision yourself being a teacher? And then how did you transition from the Blue Star camp to actually then teaching online?
That's an interesting story. First of all, when I first started playing guitar, I wanted to be a rock and roll star.
Yeah.
That's it. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
I wanted to, play in front of crowds. I wanted to play for the chicks. I wanted to do all the things that young guys wanted to do. But I had a passion for all kinds of music. And that I've kept through my life. I've traveled the world and gotten into all different kinds of music. But how did I transition from teaching kids? Like you said, it was a really valuable experience for me, a really rich experience. To be teaching kids for 10 years, I got a call from the guys from Guitar Control, which is a great company that I was with for over a decade. And they said, hey, we've seen what you do with kids. We've seen what you do online. We've heard your records. Would you consider creating some courses for teaching? And at that point, I thought, yeah, I've had the experience. Why not? And I said, why'd you call me? And they said, well, we've seen your street cred. We saw you played with Sting and this guy and that guy and Springsteen and whoever. So this is really valuable information. People are going to sit up and listen to someone who's had experience. And so I immediately said, well, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's go in a studio, let's get some good quality stuff, and we'll do some courses that show not only the songs and not only academic stuff, but stuff that makes it fun and keeps it fun.
Yeah, the videos are fantastic. They're really high quality. In fact, I want to show these people here. How many DVDs did you do?
Gosh, I did at least 12 on my own, and then I ended up producing keyboards, a couple of keyboard videos, saxophone, harmonica, violin, a vocal with Tony. I did a vocal video with Tony Lindsay from the Santana band.
Gosh, I'm dropping all these things. We have so many of these DVDs.
It goes on and on.
Ultimate Blues, Eclectic Electric. I think that there's like 20 some DVDs in here. And it's crazy because, and in fact, I'll put a link down below. We have an epic bundle package where we'll send you all of these DVDs for pennies on the dollar almost.
It's an embarrassment of riches.
We have like 13,000 of these or something. So the way that I know Jimmy is actually, he mentioned a friend, Tom Fouts from Michigan. I've known Tom Fouts online for many, many years. We've been buddies. And then the guys at Guitar Control, I coincidentally have known them for many years as well. And Tom had been trying to connect us for years, and it just hadn't happened. And then one day, Jimmy was playing right down the road. A neighbor of mine who was Rock Hendricks was playing saxophone, who was sitting in with Jimmy that day. He's like, hey, why don't you come see us? And so I'm like, sweet, two birds, one stone. Went there, met Jimmy, like right away. I was like, all right, this guy's the man. I love this dude. Something just felt so right about it. And we got to talking about all these DVDs and all the work he had done with Guitar Control. And, you guys really had a heyday. We did. You did really well. The internet has evolved. There's, hundreds of guitar teachers now out there. A lot of just fantastic ones too. I mean, just really great.
Really great.
And so the ride, went up, and then it just started kind of tapering off. And I met Jimmy. I started reading about everything about him, seeing his life's work, and I was like, this stuff needs to be preserved. I'm like, this is so classic. And it's timeless too. I mean, it's not like this stuff ever goes away. It's going to be hot in 50 years. And so my brain started whirling around, and I was like, man, I want to learn to play guitar finally. I've been playing for 20 years and still fooling around, can't barely play. I was upset. I was like, I need a guitar mentor. And I was like, I really want a business that I'm passionate about. And I really want to just wake up and be like, I want to do this. And it was like all the cards just kind of aligned. And I know you were looking for somebody like me after the Guitar Control thing. It kind of flattened out a little bit. So I said, hey, Jimmy, let's go to Guitar Control. Let me buy back like all the rights that Guitar Control has. And they agreed. And, they had moved on to doing a bunch of other things too. And they're still, Guitar Control is still pumping out other stuff as well. But they were very gracious in honoring us wanting to do a thing and reviving it.
Yeah,
And
that's
dude, it's changed my guitar playing. It's been awesome because I feel like you're my best friend on Maui. Like I feel like I got a really great friend in it, and I love seeing all the emails and the comments from people and then the customers who buy this stuff. It's just been such a win-win-win all around, and I'm very appreciative for it. And I'm really excited about the new stuff that we're going to be doing because, like I said, when I met you, I was struggling playing guitar, and I used to always say, I've played for 20 years, but I've never played a full song from beginning to end. And it's a true story, and it was embarrassing, and I realized I kept saying that over and over again. And I said, this is going to stop. I'm going to start becoming a real student. And to this day, I think I've played over 700 songs in the last 4 months. It might be 800 by now.
You've come so far in the last, 6-8 months or whatever.
Yeah, I just commit to playing 7 to 10 new songs a day.
And that's it.
And and they're not I'm not trying to play Bohemian Rhapsody note for note or anything. For me, and I know a lot of other guitar players, I just want to sit down and strum and be part of the ensemble going on and feel like I'm actually playing and having fun and not practicing a scale or something that's...
Yeah, I think that sometimes gets a little bit discouraging for people. They think that they have to practice scales all the time. Nothing wrong with scales. They have their place. But I found, especially in the years that I taught kids, is you gotta go right to the core of it, what people love, and hook them into doing something they love. Whether it's 3 chords in the truth, whatever it is. I always ask my students, what do you love? Because everybody's different. One size does not fit all. So I try to find a style or a song or an artist that they love. Let's dive into that. Let's get that going first. Attraction rather than promotion, You have to do something that people love, because if you don't, they're not going to stick around.
What I found, I've been using this software that I play along with, and I'll start with something I love, and then next to it, it'll be related songs.
Yeah.
And so it'll be something kind of similar in that genre. I'll play the next one, even if I don't know it, and the chords come by, and I just look and I strum it. And then it'll be next song. And the further I go down the rabbit hole, it kind of takes me away from the original artist and starts introducing me to these new things. So I know Neil Young, but I don't know Buffalo Springfield stuff.
Right.
And so next thing I know, I'm playing all these songs that I didn't know, and boy, there's so much to learn in diversifying and going beyond just what you really like.
I mean, I think that's part of the beauty of where we are right now with the internet and stuff. There's so much available.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets overwhelming, but with us, I think we're staying in the alley where we're keeping it focused. And yes, there are many styles that I teach, whether it's slide or acoustic picking or country or rock and roll or whatever.
I made you teach a Katy Perry song.
That's right. Well, that's good for me though. He forces me to stretch out. We do a lot every week. We look at different songs that are up there, and you know what? It's good for me in the same way that kids would bring in songs at Blue Star. They were like, "We want to do something by Everclear," or "We want to do something by." I'm like, "Who? What?" But it's really good for my mind and for my musical mind, I should say, to stretch out and try different things. I might not like it all, but it's a good stretch for sure.
I think one of our best viewed videos recently was from a rapper guy.
Yeah.
And but it's a cool little jam, and
good music's good music, man.
I enjoy it too. Sometimes you'll teach the lessons, and then the actual creator artist of the song will and then like it. Yeah. So the artist, his name was 24K Golden or something.
Huh.
The country artist Kaylee Hammock commented too on one of your lessons, and she was really excited about.
I mean, I try to do justice to whatever we teach,
Yeah.
Sometimes I do things my way, I do my own read on it, and that's okay, because if you listen to artists like Bob Dylan or whoever, they do their songs so different every time.
Totally.
I've seen Sting do stuff different way every time, because people get bored with the same thing. So anyway, it's all about making friends with the instrument and really being inspired and loving what you're doing. Yeah.
Do you play anything beyond just guitar?
Yeah, I play a lot of keyboards. I play a lot of piano lately, and I've been playing. I like writing on piano because it takes me out of my box, because I'm so comfortable on guitar that I need to challenge myself. And so, You know, we have a mutual friend, this guy Day and Kai, that plays all these different instruments. In fact, I'm on my way there today to do a little show with him, and he's really fun because he can move from guitar to keyboards to harmonica to woodwinds or whatever. So yeah, I play, besides singing and playing guitar, I play not mandolin, but 12 string and you know, obviously acoustic and open tunings, and then I like keyboards and vocals, and that's about it.
So what do you do, like, what do you do to keep learning? I mean, we all got to keep learning stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you've been doing it for 40
Well, I hang
years.
out with you for one thing. I come up here to the studio and we're like watching tunes and let's teach that one. So that's really a good exercise for me. But I actually, you know, I wake up early and I get my coffee going, and sometimes I'll go and see what's new and what's out there, because there's so much available. Or I just have nothing but just me and my guitar for a couple hours, and I just kind of empty my mind when I'm fresh and just waking up and see what comes. You know, what's you know, that came to me yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
So I'm to the point now where I have visitations, because my relationship with the guitar is such that I'm super comfortable, but I still have to constantly challenge myself. So I'm like everybody else. I'm still a 15-year-old kid when I pick up the guitar. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I love that you just kind of play from feel more than you do from theory or something. So sometimes we're transcribing the chords or something.
Yeah.
And you might not know that it's a diminished seventh something, and it's cool because it's like some of that stuff doesn't matter. And
Yeah, it's really here and here. You know, if you feel it and you hear it, you know, developing your ear is, I think, probably one of the most important things. You know, we talk about touch, tone, time, and taste. That's what one of the things that I kind of break it down to on guitar. But and those all, you know, we've gotten into in our lessons and stuff. But in terms of my approach to music, I kind of go for feel, and if I love something, I can find my way into it. I try to inhabit it and feel it out. So I don't do a lot of thinking with my guitar playing.
Yeah.
I do more because I know the basics pretty well.
How, as someone who's struggled through most of my life on listening, like, what do you encourage people to do to listen better for music?
Well, you know, there's an old saying, repetition breeds confidence, you know. So the way I learned was I would sit with a record, and, you know, you've heard this before, and I'd play the song over and over, and I'd wear that sucker out. And I would just play the same thing over and over and over until I got it. And some people say, well, I get bored really easy or whatever, but I say listen until you are bored, then listen to more and repeat it, because you should know something like you know your name. Because if you know a song that well, what it ultimately does is it frees you up, because you know it so well you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
There's a reason they call it I know it by heart, because you can play it with feeling because you know it. If you're always thinking and going, oh wait, I'll get that next time, then it's like totally dorky and wrong. So yeah, I like to listen. Better to listen, you know, is an art form, to become a good listener.
Yeah.
And you know, playing music and listening, the really good players, they have what's called big ears. So you'll watch somebody who plays, you know, watch a drummer that's everybody's listening to each other. You know, there's cues that happen. So becoming a good listener is really the key to becoming a great musician, I think.
It is. I'm someone who gets bored easily too. So sometimes with the 3-chord wonders, I'm like halfway through the song, and I used to bail on it. And then next, and we're like, I'm just like,
the song has a heart attack.
I couldn't just sit there. And now when I go through these songs, sometimes I'll be playing them, and I'll be like, you have to finish. You cannot stop mid-song. And I'll be like doing an F to a B, and I'm like, oh, and it's starting to ache, and it's my hands aching, and I'm just like, you have, and then I'll play these mind games or something like, your whole family's gonna be slaughtered if you don't hit the chord, and I'm like, and I just play mind games with myself. But by the time when I finish the song, I feel so accomplished that I didn't give up on it. Yeah. And you're right, it's through that repetition of playing it so many times, I look back like, well, no wonder I couldn't play these songs.
I think about even right down to like what we did today. We taught a particularly challenging song. It's a Bob Dylan song. It had a lot of passing chords, and we had to stop and I go, wait a minute, let's go back. Forget about the chart.
Yeah.
I'm hearing something different here. And sure enough, there's these little moves, these, I call them connective tissues, you know, that are, It's all those little connective tissues that make our playing interesting.
Yeah.
And you know, we live in an ADD world. Everything's bam, 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 bam. But with music, you gotta settle into it. You gotta it's gotta really get the soak going if you really want to be a good musician. You gotta sit in it. You know.
Sometimes, yeah, I'll sit there between, just two simple chords, an F and a C, where normally it would bore me, and I notice myself getting bored. But then I realize there's so many other things that I can do over here with this hand to spice it up. So I'm like, how do I just stay in that pocket or stay playing those chords?
Yeah.
But maybe I double it up over here, and then I just be like, all right, let's make this thing as funky as we possibly can. Like, just give it this whole different feel instead of just going through the motions.
Somebody told me, maybe you heard this too, I've always been a big Prince fan. They said that when he would record with his band, I think it was a bass player now that used to play with Prince, and he said that before they do a song, they would the band would be cooking like, they do that for like 20 minutes. The band would just be cooking and getting ferocious, and then they'd start the song.
Interesting.
You know, they'd just be like, so like, rah! And then they get into the song.
A cool Prince sidebar. It's rumored and fairly credible info that Prince used to hang out about 15 feet, like literally in our neighbor's house before he lived there.
Upcountry Melody.
He used to hide out in the back of this house quite often. I didn't live here then. I wish I did. I would have lost my mind if I saw Prince strolling down the street.
Well, Hendrix played here when, I guess, 68, 67, I can't remember.
Hendrix did Rainbow Bridge right before he went to Europe, and that's, right down the road.
Yeah. Well, Maui has always been a special place musically. I mean, I played here in the 70s, and, when Boss Skaggs played here, and Bob Marley played here, and
we got legendary Steve Grimes, guitar maker, right down the road.
He's making guitars for Paul Simon and Woody Harrelson and stuff. So Maui's always had this sort of like mystique. It really has.
Yeah, I still got my fingers crossed. I'm trying to buy the property next door to Mick Fleetwood. And so buy some DVDs so I can buy Mick Fleetwood's.
You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it, dude.
Oh, it's so great.
Feeling.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But what a magical thing to have met you here at Maui and be doing this in this great little studio that's taking shape.
Yeah, Maui.
We got stuff to do. It's cool.
We've been super blessed, and I'm super excited about where this journey is going to take us. Yeah. We're going to co-create something for absolute beginners. Yeah. Because Jimmy's fantastic at teaching people who have some level of proficiency. Yeah. And you can teach the beginner stuff, but it's just really not kind of what you do. I mean, you're just too good. So when I sat down with him, I looked at him like, how do you teach Homer Simpson how to play guitar with fat fingers and ADHD and everything? And we've come up with something that I think is going to be brilliant. I think it's going to be the best thing on the market for absolute beginners to take them from not knowing how to play anything to get them strumming along. In fact, you do a good job with the Easy Strum.
The Easy Strum, I made that product specifically for beginners. Yeah. But I think what we're talking about is maybe someone even
easier.
That's just picking up a guitar for the first time. Because, it's kind of intimidating. These things are physical. It's a hard thing to understand. Piano's just laid out for you. It's in tune. But guitars, man, I mean, your fingers, they hurt. We talk about the ouch chord, the F chord. There's certain things we all share about certain challenges that everybody shares about playing guitar. Physicality of it.
So I realized, and part of what we focus on is the mental aspect of this. And I looked at it, I'm like, it's only 12 notes. Like, I can remember 300 internet passwords in my head, and I can do all kinds of crazy things with my brain. Like, why can't I just remember 12 notes? Right. And I figured out a way to start doing that. And sorry to be teasing here about it, but we're about to start filming next week on it, so I have no idea when you're going to watch this video. Heck, I'll just plug it. When you watch it, go to guitarhypnosis.com. We're literally going to teach beginners like how to wire their mind to be able to do very simple things and remember it. Yeah. And so you learned guitar at a very young age, and think about the guys that you know or the women that you know that rip at guitar. what do they all have in common? They almost all learned when they were young.
It's true.
And if you try to teach a 35-year-old guy guitar, like 90% of them are just going to struggle and going to give up.
They get discouraged.
You're going to have to be an anomaly to be able to learn not only guitar, but just learning at an older age. Our brains are much different than when we're teenagers.
Athletics or anything.
Yeah, so there's this plasticity. And so I've been involved in all these other internet businesses that deal with neuroplasticity and helping people to hypnotize their mind for, health, wealth, happiness, love, all these different things. And one day I sat down and I said, what would happen if I took the same things about rewiring my mind and just positive affirmations in life, if I took that and applied it to guitar? And instead of saying, I can't play a single song all the way through, I now say I play 800 songs all the way through. Yeah. And so I sat down and I started hypnotizing myself for a couple months, and the results were just so fantastic. I was just like, we got to create a course for this, because there's so many people out there that struggle like I have. And if they could see through the eyes and the lens of someone who's not a teacher, so I've been an educator for 15 years of teaching people how to learn things on the internet, but I don't teach guitar. And I think that that's actually an advantage, because I see things from a very simple way where most guitar teachers, yourself included, you're kind of whipping through the things and guys are going, What? Rewind! Go back!
Right. It's true.
It really
very
is.
True. That's the one comment I've gotten over the years. Could you slow it down a little bit? Más despacio, por favor. Slow it down, break it down. And I'm like, oh, okay. But for you, you're like an everyman guy that probably people can relate to as a bridge to get to where I'm at.
Yeah, so I'm so confident between some of the mental training and then just looking at the fretboard and the notes and listening to each of those in a completely different angle than anything I've ever seen people teach guitar. I'm confident that anyone could play guitar, even if you're 70 or a 10-year-old, and or if you're mentally impaired like me and ADD and gosh.
And I think many of us are used to, that kind of fast, but we need that a way to do it.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up. The future for you, what do you see in the next couple of years for you?
Well, right now we're at a time where, a lot of us are, hanging out. And so
coronavirus times.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, there's not any gigs right now. As it turns out, I'm really passionate about passing on to the next, to everybody out there, my knowledge of guitar. And through you, us working together, I see doing not only teaching, but also I'd like to do what we call studio work and video work, because I think that's going to be kind of the gateway to getting to people. If we can't do as much live stuff, which I always love doing, and I hope it'll all come back. But I think not only presenting a technique of hypnosis, guitar hypnosis, but also songwriting, the creative process, talking about working with Dan. So I'd like to create collaboratively, if you will. That's what I'd like to do. Yeah,
I think we're in some weird down times, but I'm super optimistic about just the future. Not only for us, but just musicians in general. I know a lot of people are struggling with gigs being canceled and trying to make Zoom shows work.
Yeah, it will get better, hopefully.
They're tough, man. They're really tough, but I still believe that there's some really great times for music ahead, and I'm excited to explore them with you.
Yeah, I look forward to passing on my knowledge, as I said, and through you working together, you being the bridge, I think, to some degree, passing that on to people so that they can enjoy what I enjoy, what I love. And this is the center of my life. So
So we got JimmyDillon.com. You can go there. You can access all his social media stuff. We have all 5 of his albums up there, and we have. Gosh, you can click to get all, I think, 9 courses. We bundled the 20 of them into 9. But basically, JimmyDillon.com is the hub for everything. And thanks for tuning in today.
See ya.